Hi, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at EasyEffects, which are audio effects for PipeWire applications. This application was formerly known as PulseEffects, but it was renamed to EasyEffects after it started to use GTK and GStreamer usage was replaced by native PipeWire filters. So this is basically a version of PulseEffects for PipeWire, and this will allow us to add equalizers, noise cancellation, compressors. And if I scroll down the page here, you'll see a list of all the effects that are available. Auto gain, which I believe is the EBU 128 loudness standard, so it will normalize audio. We've got bass enhancer, bass loudness compressors, de-essers to remove S's from sibilants from speech, echo cancellation for mics. We've got filters for like high and low pass, loudness, gate, multiband compressors, equalizers. And the other thing that's really good about this is it can be installed using flatpak. So what I'm going to do is actually take you through installing this, getting PipeWire set up, installing flatpak and getting the application set up and going through some of the settings. So what I'll do is actually open up the application and give you a look at it first of all. So what I'm going to do is come across and open EasyEffects. And here we go. And what you'll see here is we have output, input and PipeWire. So output is obviously the speakers, input is the mic, and PipeWire is the actual settings for your PipeWire setup basically. So what we've got here is we've got excuse me, players. When you've got a application playing audio, it will show up in the list here, and you can you can set it to use the filters or not use the filters. And then what we've got down here is effects, and this is where you can actually add effects and chain them together. So these are all the effects that you've got. And what you also have up here is presets. So what you can actually do is create a collection of effects and then save them as a preset. And I'll show you where the file is actually saved, and it's a JSON file. And the other advantage is you can save your preset, you can come across to another computer, and then you can just load the presets in. So it makes it really easy to copy your presets to another computer and have them all set up. So these are the presets. We also have a global bypass, which will basically toggle the filters on and off. So if you're listening to something and you want to hear the difference between what it sounds like with the effects applied and them turned off, you can just apply the global bypass. And now up here we have the hamburger menu with the actual preferences. So what we've got here is the preferences, the manual, shortcuts, reset settings, and about EasyEffects. So obviously you want to have a look at the manual, but I'll just give you a quick look at the preferences. And what we've got here is we can actually launch this as a service at the startup. We can shut this down on window closing, so that when you close the window here, it will basically stop applying the effects. We can process all output streams. We can process all input streams, which would be the mic. We can also set it to ignore monitor devices, which are typically used in things like OBS and other things for capturing desktop audio. We can set it to use a dark theme and hide menus on outside clicks. Then what we've got here is the spectrum, and this is actually the waveform that's displayed when you're playing audio. And you can set the shape, and I'll go through this when it's actually playing. So you can set the shape of the bars, so they're actually bars, lines or dots. You can have rounded corners. You can choose the color for the bars as well. So those are the settings for the actual application. What I'm going to do now is actually run through getting this set up. So if I come back across here, what I've done is actually made series of notes on everything you need to do to get this working. So the first step is you need to be running PipeWire. So I'm on Ubuntu 22.04, which has PipeWire sort of partially enabled, you need to actually install some other stuff to get it working. So what I'm going to do is just run through these steps here. So on Ubuntu 22.04, what you need to do is actually install some additional applications, some additional programs like PipeWire audio client libraries, libspa-0.2 Bluetooth, and libspa-0.2-jack. The other thing that we want to do is we want to install WirePlumber and replace PipeWire media session. And the way you do that is by running sudo apt install WirePlumber PipeWire-media-session dash. Now the dash at the end basically means remove this package. So what this is going to do is it's going to install WirePlumber and remove the PipeWire media session program. Then the next step that we did is for Ultra clients, you copy this configuration to this location. If you're using Jack, you copy this file to this location. And I made a video about fixing MPV playback of WebM files. So I've gone through this process in a previous video, which I'll link to. Only takes a couple of minutes to do. And then you run sudo ld config. And if you're using Bluetooth, what you do is you remove the Pulse audio module Bluetooth. And finally, what you do is you enable the media session by running this command: system ttl --user --now enable WirePlumber service. And then what you want to do is you want to restart Ubuntu, and then you come across to the terminal and we check it's actually running by running pactl info. And as you'll see here, server name Pulse Audio on PipeWire. So we've got PipeWire set up, actually working. And let me just switch back across to this. So we've got PipeWire working, and I've got instructions here about storing Pulse Audio if you need to. Now the next thing you need to do is actually install flatpak, because we're going to be installing EasyEffects as a flatpak application, because it's not available in the Ubuntu 22.04 repository. It may be available in other distributions repositories like Arch or Fedora, but what I'm just going to be doing is using the flatpak version, because if you use this, it's just going to be the same on all distributions. So hopefully it should sort of work consistently across everything, where you may get issues if, you know, with it being installed via the Arch repository or Fedora, they may behave slightly differently. So again, to install flatpak, we just run sudo apt install flatpak, and then flatpak remote add --user if not exists, flathub, flathub repo, .org, flathub.org repo, flathub.flatpak repo. So that's the command you run in the terminal to actually get flatpak working. And then finally, to install EasyEffects using flatpak, we just run flatpak install --user flathub com.github.wwmm.easyeffects. Now I'm setting up flatpak so that it installs into my home directory in a .var hidden .var directory, and the reason for that is because it makes it easier to actually find the configuration files for the application or the presets that we're going to save. So I'll link to this file, and there's a video showing you how to get set up with PipeWire. Those are basically the steps. So we've gone through and we've installed EasyEffects, and now if I just come back, I opened EasyEffects from my application launcher. So the first thing we want to do is actually come across and have a look at the manual. So if you come across here, this is the manual for EasyEffects, and there's a section here, guides enhancing your internal notebook speakers without using an equalizer. So this tutorial was originally written for PulseEffects, but it's been updated for EasyEffects on PipeWire. And this is a guide on using several filters to try and improve the sound of your notebook speakers. And it'll give you a sort of a list of filters to add and the settings to go through. So what I've actually done is if I come across to presets and I come across to here speakers, I just click load. So you see at the moment it's saying headphones. If I click load speakers, you'll see it now is loaded those filters, and these filters correspond to this guide. So in the guide, basically what it's suggesting is to improve the sort of sound of your speakers. What you do is you add a high pass filter that cuts out sort of a lot of the bass, because your little tinny speakers won't be able to do much bass. And then it adds a bass enhancer, a multi-band compressor, and another one called stereo tools, and then a limiter which sort of makes sure the audio doesn't clip. So what you can basically do is add effects by going add effects, clicking the plus button and configuring the effects. And what you end up with is as you hover over, you'll see you get these three little buttons. The first one removes the effect, and you've got to be really careful because it's really easy to go through, set something up and accidentally just click remove this effect, and you don't get a prompt, it'll just remove it. So you've got to be careful with that. The next one will enable and disable the effect, so you can actually as you're going through trying to improve the audio quality, you can enable and disable the effects so you can hear the difference. And the final one is a move button that is basically a draggable button that lets you rearrange the order of these effects. So what you do is you go through and you sort of click add effect, you go through and you add your effects. And then what you do is you come up here and you go to presets and you give it a name. And you click plus, and then what it will do is it will add it into this section here. What you then need to do after you've done that is you want to click this little button, save current settings to this preset file. What this will do is this will save those presets as a JSON file in your flatpak directory. So what I'm going to do is actually show you the location where these presets are stored. So let me just have some more tea. So what I'm going to do is come across to Emacs. It's going to be easier to sort of show. So .var. So we've got .var. This is where the flatpak applications will be installed using the -- user option when we installed flatpak. So if you don't use the -- user option, it will be installed at the root of your system, which makes it harder to actually find the configuration files, in my opinion. So that's why I install them in my home directory. So what you see here is in .var app, we've got the applications installed with flatpak. So we've got OBS Studio, and you can see here we've got com.github, EasyEffects. Now, if I come into this directory, you'll see we've got cache, config. Let's see if I can just make this a bit bigger. So config, and then we go into EasyEffects. And so what we've got here is the path var app, com GitHub EasyEffects, config EasyEffects. And then what we've got here is you've got three directories: auto load, input, and output. Auto load allows you to auto load particular profiles. So if I come into auto load, you've got input and output. So what you can actually do with the auto load is have profiles that will be automatically loaded according to what device you plug in. So you can actually set it so that if you've got several different mics, when you plug a particular mic or a particular set of speakers in, it'll load a particular profile. And you can do that through the GUI or you can do it by placing the config files in that directory. The input directory here is for input devices for microphones. So those are profiles that you apply to your mic. So for example, there are profile filters that you can use for noise suppression, echo cancellation, and you might want to use these if you are not using something like OBS Studio that there's got those functions built in. So if you're using something like FFmpeg to do screen recording, you can actually use EasyEffects to apply noise cancellation to your mic before recording with FFmpeg, I think. And then finally, what we've got here is a section we're interested in is output. So this is output devices, speakers, headphones, that sort of thing. And as you'll see here, what we've got is two JSON files, headphones and speakers. And those correspond to the name of the presets that I created in the interface of EasyEffects. So if I open those up, what you'll see here is this is a JSON file with all the settings, all the filters down here. Okay, so what you can do is basically copy these JSON files, copy them to another computer, and then in the you could either manually copy the files to the output directory, or you can actually import them through the EasyEffects GUI. So that's adding effects and then saving them. So what you do is you add your effects, get them all set up, go through all the settings, come to presets, give it a name, click plus. Which one? I'm not sure what a new pre is, but you basically give it a name, click plus, and it will then appear here. Then what you need to do is click the little button here to save the preset, because I think what happens is you just give it a name and click plus and it shows up. It's temporary, it's not saving the configuration. So you do need to click the little button here, and this will remove the preset, and these buttons here will actually load the preset. So if I want to switch to headphones, I click the load button there, and you can see it's loaded the headphones preset, which is slightly different in that I've removed the filter and the bass enhancer from the chain of effects there and added an equalizer. So what I'm going to do is go through and play something so you can actually see how this looks when some audio is playing. So what we'll find is, let's see if we can, what's the best way to do this? Okay, let's move this to 4 and see if we can tile it and come across to YouTube. And just note, I just did a video recently on removing the pop-up. You can see I'm in the EU and I'm not getting the do you accept the cookies pop-up, and that's because I'm using Tamper Monkey. I'm using a Tamper Monkey script that will automatically sort of bypass the pop-up menu. So what I'm going to do is search for Big Buck Bunny, because it's something that can be played safely. So what we're going to do is start playing it here. And what you'll see is as I'm playing, we have the waveform here. So what I'm quickly going to do is pause that for a second and actually show you how you can change the default waveforms, because by default they're white and blocky. So if I come across to preferences, I come across to spectrum, what you see is we've got the shape here. We've got bars, lines and dots, and by default it's lines. So let me just see if I can, so you can see here, this is the default. You can change it to dots, but I prefer the actual bars. And then the second thing is coming down here to the lines and bars color. And here you can change the bars color. So I just put it to a blue just to match the blue of the interface. So that's just a quick tip on changing the bars color and changing it from lines to bars, which I think looks a bit better. So right, the next step is when this is playing, if we click play and come across to players here, you'll see we have the player playing here, and what we've got is we've got enable. So this is enabling the filters for this application, and we can also exclude this application from having filters applied to it. So there may be some applications you don't want to apply the filters to. So the way you do that is by when they're easiest way to do it is by when they're playing here, deselect that and click exclude, and then that application will bypass all the filters. And there's various reasons why you might want to do that. So that's possible, and that's how you do it. So you've got the output listed there. We've got input, and you can see here it's actually showing up my microphone from OBS, and you could actually set that to be excluded. So you can actually exclude mics from being, processed by EasyEffects if they're already being processed by OBS. Okay, so we come back across to and then you've got this little thing, excluded apps here. And what you can do is you can actually type in the name of the application to exclude from having filters applied to it, but it's got to exactly match the name listed here. So it can be difficult to get the name right doing it this way. So the best way to exclude applications is by going to the output tab and then just clicking exclude. So that's the players tab, and this is the effects tab, and this is basically where you can add all the effects. So what you can do is when the video is playing here, you can come across to this global bypass. You can see now it's bypassing the filters, and then it's re-enabling them. So what we can do now is let's create a new set of filters. So let's create something called, let's just call it say test. Test. Click test. You can see it's still loaded headphones here. So what we're going to do is load test, and it should. So interestingly enough, what happens is it kind of picks up the settings that you've already got in here. So when you create a new preset, you'd think it'd start with a blank thing. I've loaded it, but it's actually still showing up with these items that were in the previous preset. So, for example, if I let's add something and then remove it. So we've got the limiter here. Okay, so let's remove the limiter and come back to the presets and click save this. So what should happen now is if I switch, let me just switch back. Okay, so we loaded that one. I've loaded the headphones. Let's switch back to loading the test one. And it should, yeah, you can see it's removed the limiter from the chain of effects. So what I'd recommend is actually, as you're going through and making changes, because it's really easy just to click the remove this effect button, it's a good idea as you're actually going along to actually save the preset. Think of it like editing a document. You're not going to write the whole document out without saving it. So, you're going to type a few lines and save, make another change or two and then save again. Same thing with this. So basically you create a new preset and you load it, and you see it's loaded here. You make changes and then you sort of save it. So let's disable some of these. Let's disable these and let's add a filter. So what we've got here is, yeah, oh, there we go. So we've got a filter here. What we're going to do is we're going to click this button. We're going to just try and drag it to the top. Sometimes it's a bit funny about dragging it. So you're going to let me drag it. Okay, there we go. So we've got the filter here. And what we've got set by default is another interesting thing. Sometimes what seems to happen is when you add a effect and make changes to it and then remove it and then add it back again, it seems to remember the settings that you've applied to the filter. So you can see here there's a reset button, and this will reset it to the default values. But what I found is sometimes you might be going through and you accidentally delete an effect, but if you re-add it, it seems to retain the changes you made, so that you can just add it back in. So unless you click the reset button, you can just add the effect back in if you've changed it. So what this effect here will do is it will add a high pass which will cut out all the low frequency noise. So you can see here it's cutting out all the low frequencies here. So if I disable it, so you notice that an effect is disabled because it's grayed out. So you can see down here all the low frequencies are being let through, but when I enable the high pass, it's cutting out all the low frequencies here. Okay, so that's adding a high pass filter that will cut out all the low frequency noises. And in the manual, in the guide for improving your built-in speakers without using an equalizer, what it suggests is adding a high pass to cut out the low frequencies, and then adding a bass enhancer. So what you do is you cut out the low frequencies, and then you add a bass enhancer. And then again, what we're going to do is we're just going to move this up here, and we want to add the bass enhancer after the filter. So what we'll do is we'll just save this as we go along. So we've got the bass enhancer here, so you can actually cut out the low frequency noise, and then add a bass enhancer back in. And the reason given for this in the manual is because just using an equalizer on your built-in speakers isn't really effective, and because they can't because they're basically crap. So this is a way of sort of adding in bass. So what I'll do is if I play the video now and toggle the bass on and off, so you can see here all the bass is cut out. When I enable it, you'll see the bass comes back in, and I increase the, you can increase that up to 10 decibels. So in the guide, they actually, which was for a ThinkPad, they were recommending putting the bass enhancer up to like 24 decibels or something, and I tried that and it sounded a bit crap on my headphones. This is bass on, bass off, so you can see there's no... Okay, so that's how you go through and add effects and chain them together, toggle them on and off. And again, you've got the global bypass here, which will toggle the entire filter chain on and off, so you can see what all your effects sound like, and then what they sound like normally. Let me just finish this tee off. So these are some of the effects that you can sort of add, and another one was adding at the end was a limiter. So we'll come across here. You can see we've got the limiter, and we'll just scroll across. I think it's still actually retained some of the settings. Yeah, you can see the reset button. So the limiter is placed at the end of the chain to ensure that the audio signal doesn't clip or distort, anything like that. Now, the other thing I should actually mention is in the documentation, it actually lists what you've got down here is a series of numbers. What you've got, first of all, is the current audio sample rate, which, as you can see here, is 48 kilohertz, and that's set in the PipeWire configuration tab. Then what you have is the latency in milliseconds that is being introduced by applying the audio effects to the audio signal. So you can see it's 4 milliseconds. And then what you have is a decibel reading. So that's what these little numbers at the bottom mean. And if you have a look at the manual by pressing F1, coming up here, going F1, having a look through the documentation, it will explain that in greater detail. So that's some of the important things about the interface. You've got the presets tab up here. So we've got the output presets, and then we've got the input presets. And again, what you do is you actually create a new preset, you give it a name, you click the plus button, and then it appears here, and then you sort of save it, and then you can actually load the presets from here. And I think there is, I can't quite remember where the actual thing for importing the presets is. You do it through that that section there. But again, what you can just do is actually copy the presets to that directory I showed you, which I'll give a full path to in the documentation. I'll update the GitHub page I wrote to show you where the configuration files are stored, so that you can just basically go to another machine, copy them to that location, start up EasyEffects, and then you'll have your presets listed here. I was reading the documentation. I think there's somewhere you can import them, but I can't remember offhand. So you've got the presets here, input and output. You load them to change them here. That's how you save them, and that's how you delete them. And you've got the global bypass to toggle the filter chain on and off. You've got the output section here. And what that does is that shows you both the players currently playing, where you can enable this application, or you can exclude it from the list. And again, at the bottom, you've got this excluded apps list. So you can either type the name in there, but it's got to match exactly the name up here. But this is how you can show the excluded applications. And then you've got the input, where you've got the same thing. So you've got recorders, and then you've got effects. So this is where you can see your input devices, and you can actually apply effects to them. You probably wouldn't use this if you're using OBS Studio, because that's got built-in effects. But suppose you've done an update to OBS Studio and it's broken, and you've got to do a video, so you've got to use FFmpeg, and you want to have some noise cancellation to cut out the noise of your fan, or some building work next door, or whatever it is. You could use this as a fallback and apply some effects to your input device for cutting out, a high shelf to cut out low frequency noise, a de-esser, echo cancellation, that sort of thing. And finally, what you got up here, so you got the recorders, and then you got the effects you can apply, and then you got the PipeWire. And this is, you don't want to touch this. It works fine out the box, so you don't really need to do anything with that. And then you've got this section here, presets auto loading. What this is you can actually set a particular preset to be loaded when you have a particular device attached to your computer. So if you've, plugged, you got a, a DAC, an audio device, or a different set of headphones, or a different microphone, you can actually automatically load a particular preset of effects for that device when it's plugged in, which is really nice because you can basically create a series of effects tailored to that device and have it automatically loaded when it's plugged in. I haven't gone through the modules. I think these are obviously the modules that are installed, and then you've got clients, and then you've got a test signal. So I think this test signal is used for calibrating the system. So this is how you can have a test signal that you can check the audio, how it sounds when you apply particular effects, that sort of thing. So that's the PipeWire section down there. And again, what you've got here is you've got the preferences. That brings this up, which is, I haven't tried this first one here, launch service at system startup. Haven't tried that. But basically, by default, what happens is when you close the EasyEffects window, it will turn off EasyEffects and stop applying the PipeWire effects to your audio. So that's quite nice. So, but you can set it so that that's disabled. So if you don't want the window, you've got it all set up, and you just want to close the window and have the effects continue to be applied, you turn that off. And this is where you process all output streams. So that's processing all your output devices, and you can see at the moment it's not processing input devices, so it's not processing my mic by default. Then you've got ignore streams of monitor of devices, and monitor devices are a sort of virtual device that monitors a real audio device. And what that allows you to do is, for example, record your desktop audio, things like that. Cubic volume, that's actually listed in the manual. I can't remember what it is offhand. You've got dark theme, hide menus on outside clicks. And again, this is the spectrum. This is what's displayed up here, showing the frequencies of the audio. What you've got is you've got the shape, and by default it's set to lines. I prefer bars. I just find it easier to actually see which frequencies are being used. You can adjust the points and the height and line width. You can have a fill, so by default it will use the color you selected. You can have rounded corners if you want, and this is where you can change the color of the lines. So what you've got is a series of presets you can choose, or you can choose custom, and that will let you enter a hex code or use a picker here. So those are all the settings. And another thing I wanted to go through was the effects. So if I come across to, and this is just this test one I've gone here. So if I come across, let me just stick this full screen. This is the equalizer, not the TV show with Edward Woodward. Actually, I had a good intro to that. Stuart Copeland, I think it was. But what you do is you come across and you do click plus equalizer, and you then move the equalizer to the position in the chain you want. And what you can see here is when filters are active, they'll be white. When they're inactive, and you've temporarily disabled them by pressing the second button, that's how you toggle them on and off. And again, you need to be really, really careful, because I've done this several times. Just accidentally move your mouse across here and clicking that, and it removes it without any prompt. But as I said, what seems to happen is it actually saves the settings temporarily, So anytime you re-add an effect you've changed, it will retain the settings unless you've clicked the reset button. So if you accidentally deselect this, you can re-add it and it will still have the settings unless you click the reset button. So if I come across to the equalizer, what you'll notice is we have all these gears here, and basically if you come across, what you'll find is you have different types. So you've got like a bell, you've got like a high pass or high shell for low pass, you've got a notch. So these are the shapes of the if you ever use a video editor like DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro, you'll know that when you have like an equalizer, you can change the shape of the line that's in the interface. It could be a big bell or it could be a narrow notch. So this is where you can actually change this, or or it could be just like a cutoff to cut off a range of audio signals. So you can come through and you could, like, for instance, go like high pass, cut out all the low frequency noise. So this is where you can come through and you can select the different type of I don't know what the correct term would be, but the different type of equalizer, whether it's like a bell curve or a high pass or low pass, a notch, which allows for much finer it's a much more accurate way of defining a frequency. It's a bell is a much wider range than a narrow notch. So this is where you can change all of these settings. So you could change the first one to a high pass to cut out low frequency noise. So you can actually come through, you can actually adjust the type of curve that's being used. You've got the different modes, you've got slopes. You can actually put in a specific frequency down here. You can solo it, you can mute it. So what you can actually do is, and you can see here, this is when I'm clicking outside, this isn't disappearing. I think that might be due to the that setting in the preferences. So if you click the button, what you need to do is press escape, and that will dismiss it. And I think that is related to this preference, hide menus on outside clicks. I'm not sure. That might be what's affecting it. So if you click the button and you're thinking it's not disappearing, now it's disappearing, but if it's not disappearing, just click escape. But this is where you can go through, you can set the amount of bands, you can set the mode, lots of really in-depth stuff that you can do here. I haven't gone through all of this, but if you mess anything up, you can just click the reset button. And again, basically you just go through and you add all your the different effects you've got. So these are all listed in the manual. Like auto gain is the EBU standard. You got bass enhancer, loudness, compressor, de-essers, which can be useful for microphones, echo cancellation, equalizers, filters for like high and low pass. You got gates, limiters, loudness, multiband compression, compressors. You got noise reduction, pitch, reverb, stereo tools. So you've got a lot of stuff to play with. And the other advantage of this is, suppose you don't know too much about getting the audio set up. What you can do is you can just import someone else's sort of settings that they've gone through, and hopefully they know a bit more about it. So the other advantage of this is it makes it easy to add all your effects to one of these, save it, and again what you can do is, if I come across, what you'll see here, my VAR app, EasyEffects directory, config, EasyEffects, output, you'll see the presets. So you can see the new test JSON file here, and you can see all the effects being used. You can see the bass enhancer, the frequencies being used in the compressor and the equalizer, so stereo tools. So you basically got everything listed in there. So the other advantage is you can come through and tweak the configuration file. If, you know, someone's set something up and it's too much bass, you can just come through, either edit the JSON file or actually edit it in the GUI for EasyEffects. So, you know, if you wanted to change, say we've got the bass here, and we've got 10, you know, someone's done a config file with 10 decibels. No, that's just too much. I want to change it to 5. Let me just make sure that file's closed. So if I now change that back to, say, 5, and what you want to do is press return. I think you need to sort of click out of it for it to sort of be active, and then I come across and then save that by clicking this button, and finally switch back to this file. What we want to do is look for the bass enhancer. So let's have a look at the bass enhancer. So you can see the amount is 5 here. So what happens is when you save the file in the EasyEffects, it's going to write those changes out to this JSON file. So that's another good thing, is that you can import a file. If it's not what you like, you can go through, you can remove particular effects, you can change the amounts, and then just come across, save the settings, and it will save those changes that you've made. So it's really useful for getting something set up on one computer. You can then just copy the settings across to another computer and copy them into that directory. I think that there is a way somewhere, I just can't remember it. Import a preset. Okay, that's it. So what you do, if you want to import a preset, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can do it from the command line by actually copying the config files to .var app, you know, this directory config EasyEffects, and then for your output devices it'd be output. Or you can just come to the presets thing here, select the tab. So if we're importing presets for our output devices, our speakers, our headphones, we just come across here, click, and then select the preset to import, and it will actually import it. So is it not going to let me now? Oh, there we go. So that's how you import them. Click that button, select the file. This is how you load the different presets. You can see, if I click, you know, another one, it's going to load a different set of presets, and you'll see it listed down here. And that's the button that you need to click to save the current settings to this preset file. And you know, if you want to remove the preset file, you do that. What I'd also recommend is actually, because you might accidentally come through and click one of these buttons. So if I just click remove test, will it prompt me? See, it didn't prompt me. So it didn't prompt me. Do you really want to delete that? So if I come back here, you can see that test.json file has now been deleted. So the issue there is it's really easy to accidentally delete one of these presets by clicking these buttons. You don't get a warning, and it's also going to delete the configuration file on disk. So what you want to do is create a copy of your configuration files and store them somewhere online, like GitHub, something like that, which is what I'm doing. If I come back across, I'll come back to here. I thought I'd put them somewhere, but or maybe I was going to, or I've just put them somewhere else. But I recommend putting them online as well, or having them stored, somewhere else on disk, because it's really easy to accidentally delete them, and you'll be really annoyed if you've spent ages getting everything set up, going through lots of technical documentation about equalizers and multiband compressors and all that sort of stuff, gone through and added notches and bell curves and high pass, low pass filters, and you go through and you just accidentally click the button and you delete all your work. You'd be peeved. So make sure to, once you've actually saved these, what you're going to want to do is, if I come across to the desktop, I'm going to do copy var app.com GitHub, EasyEffects, and what was the path again? So config EasyEffects output, config EasyEffects output .json. We're going to copy all the JSON files to the desktop. So as you can see here, we've now got the headphones.json and speakers.json configuration files stored to the desktop. And what you do is you'd then put those on GitHub or something, or whatever you like. And any time you make changes, just remember to update the version you've got stored online, and this will make it easier to just pull down those configuration files on another computer and import them, and also make sure that you got them safely backed up in case you do something stupid and click that little button and delete them. So that's where the effects are installed, how you can import them. You can easily copy the configuration files to the desktop, so that you can have them backed up. That's pretty much everything I've gone through using in this in the last day. I haven't had any issues getting it to work with anything. It works with all the applications. We just put back into tiled mode. So as you can see here, you can put the global bypass on, turn it off. You might not notice much difference in this, but if I could find something like old movie with bad audio, see if we can get anything. No, he's going to get a load of stuff coming up. What I was looking for was typically you get like really old movies, maybe from 30s or 40s or something like that, and the audio will have a lot of high pitch audio, or maybe rumbling, or particular frequency will have a lot of phasing it or something like that. What you can do is you can actually make a preset that would like cut out low frequency noise or a lot of high frequency noise, and then you could load that preset up for those particularly bad videos. And the other advantage of this is that it's basically system wide, so it will apply to basically all your audio devices. So you often have things where you might have a particular application like VLC or something that's got a built-in equalizer, but programs like MPV, which is a command line video player, doesn't. In a previous video I showed you how you can actually create keyboard shortcuts to use FFmpeg filters, which have got all these, which are really hard to decipher, be a list of frequencies and everything. And it's not really very user-friendly way to actually apply an equalizer. So this is really good because let's see if we've got Night of the Living Dead. Okay, so we've got Night of the Living Dead, that's in the public domain. what I want to do is actually pick out the bit where the audio is. So if I come across here, see if we can get one with the...
They ought to make the day the time changes, the first day of summer.
That's it with it off.
Well, it's 8 o'clock and it's still light.
A lot of good the extra daylight does us. Now, we've still got a 3-hour drive back. We're not going to be home until after midnight.
Well, if it really bugged you, Johnny, you wouldn't.
So this is it with it on. Okay. Hang on.
They ought to make the day the time changes, the first day of summer.
What?
Well, it's 8 o'clock and it's still light.
Okay. This with it off.
Hour drive back. We're not going to be home until after midnight.
Well, if it really bugged you, Johnny, you wouldn't do it.
You think I want to blow Sunday on a scene like this? Sunday on a scene like this? You know, I figure we're either going to have to move Mother out here or move the grave into Pittsburgh.
She can't make a trip like this.
Oh.
There's it off. On.
Yeah, that candy.
So if I just toggle that back off. So you can actually go through and toggle this on and off, and you can listen to stuff and think, okay, well, I want to knock out a lot of this particular frequency. It's got too much bass, there's too much hiss. And you can go through and you can apply filters for high pass, low pass, that sort of thing. And when you come across, these old crackly movies on YouTube or something, you can just load that preset up and hopefully make the audio a bit more bearable to listen to. So that's some of the use cases. So this is the site again. If I come back across here, EasyEffects, and again this is for PipeWire applications. It was formerly PulseEffects, but it's been renamed to EasyEffects because it's using GTK, and they're not using GStreamer, they're using native PipeWire filters. Again, this is what it looks like by default. It has white. I think actually by default it doesn't show the bars, it shows the lines. But that's what it looks like by default, and these are all the effects that you can actually use. And again, if I come across to EasyEffects, what you want to do is come across, first of all, go to the preferences, make any changes you want for stuff like the spectrum, changing the shape to bars from lines, changing the color. But what you want to do is come across and RTFM, read the FM manual, and this is the first section down here, enhancing your internal notebook speakers without using equalizer. And basically it's got a section down here, why no equalizer. Basically they're saying they're not only help solving this particular problem of tinny speakers, and so what it's suggesting is actually going through and applying a different range of filters like limiters, filters, bass enhancers, multiband compressors, and these were the sort of settings, and those are what I've done. I come across to speakers, yeah. So speakers, so that's what I've done with these settings here. I haven't listened to it in my speakers, but I've just put the amount to 1 decibel. Bass increase. So what I'll do is I'll actually put the configuration files for these settings here, which correspond to the ones in the manual apart from the amount of bass, and also what I was just playing around with one for my headphones, and I'll put the JSON file for this up as well. So what you can do if you just want to get started, you can just come across and you can load and import them after you've downloaded them, and then tweak the settings, remove anything you don't like, add any other filters, and then you'd just save them and it would save your changes. And of course you'd back up the configuration files in case you accidentally hit that trash can and delete them. So that's how you can sort of import stuff. And I'll come back across here. I thought I'd put the configuration files up, but I will put them up in this directory or somewhere else on GitHub, just to make it easy to import those configuration files. And again, these are all the effects you can apply, and this is the manual again. This is the section on enhancing your internal notebook speakers, and then it's got a guide here for the user interface, explaining how it basically works. And it's explaining the little numbers at the bottom of the screen, which were the sample rate, the latency introduced by the audio pressing and the processing, and the decibels. And you've got the applications excluded section about excluding the applications. And again, you do that by coming to the players, and when something's playing, you'll see it listed here, and you can then click the exclude button, and you can also see the list of excluded applications here. You can manually add one, but it's got to exactly match the name that would be listed here. Let me just come back across to the manual. So that's the applications excluded. You've got the changing effects order, which is basically dragging them up and down, creating and importing user preferences. And this describes how you can import the presets, and also the auto-loading of a specific preset for a specific audio input or output device. And it's basically saying just open the PipeWire tab and click on the presets auto-loading and select the desired preset and the device to associate them from the two combo boxes, and then click the add button. So that was the PipeWire presets auto-loading, where you can actually, I won't do it now, but you can actually add an association between a device and a particular preset, so that it's automatically loaded when you plug in that device. So that might be useful just to speed things up. And again, that's if I can come across in your config EasyEffects directory, that's you got the three directories. You've got auto load, so you've got auto load for input and output, and then you've got input and output here. So these are the presets for, you know, input devices, output devices, and then auto load for particular devices. And you probably want to do that through the GUI, but you've also got the option of doing it manually by sticking the configuration files in there. You can enable or disable an application. So you can, as I said, you can just when it's playing, you can just check turn it on or off, enable it, disable it. You've got the PipeWire settings, presets auto-loading, that sort of thing. You've got the test signal there for calibration. A saturation warning, I think, is basically showing you when stuff's getting overloaded, and you can use a limiter or a maximizer plugin at the end of the audio chain to fix that. You've got the settings menu showing you the general settings and the spectrum, which I've been through. Then you've got all the plugins down here like auto gain, and as I said, this is the EBU 128 standard for loudness normalization, so that audio is easier to listen to. So you could, if you're particularly if you're getting on a bit and you find it sometimes hard to listen to a particular bit of audio. Recently there was big complaints about stuff on the BBC being recorded much too, you know, the audio was too low and people couldn't hear it. So what you can do is you can create a preset with an auto gain filter, and that will normalize the audio to make it easier to listen to. So might be good for setting up for, you know, your grandparents or something like that. And you've got things like the bass enhancer, loudness, you've got a multi-band compressor, and you've got de-essers, echo cancellation, equalizers, you've got filters for high and low pass, you've got gates, limiters, loudness, multi-band compressors, noise reduction, stereo tools, reverb, pitch. So have a look through all these sections, and what a lot of them have is they will actually have references to Wikipedia articles about that particular kind of filter. So you can actually read up and get deep and get right into it. So that's the manual that you want to go through. That's basically the user interface. Remember, you got the presets up here, output and input. You put your name in. You put a name in there. You click plus, and it will add a new preset there. But remember, what it seems to do, it doesn't start with a blank preset. It's if you've got effects already listed, it actually adds those effects into the new preset. So you have to kind of go through and delete them sometimes, and then click save. This is where you click to import a preset. Again, this is how you switch between the different presets, saving and deleting. This is the global bypass, so you can bypass, toggle the audio chain on and off. This is where the players will be listed, and again, you can enable them or exclude them. You've got the excluded apps. You've got the same deal for input here. You can enable or exclude, and you've got the effects that you can apply to the input device. Then you've got the PipeWire tab where you've got the general, and you don't really want to change this. This is just basically going to use your default input and output devices. So unless you've got a really specific reason to change it, it's working fine out the box. Then you've got the presets auto loading for associating presets with particular audio devices. It's going to list the modules, sort of the clients, and then you've got the sort of test signal here. So that's all of the interface. And apart from when you're on the effects tab here, you click plus. You can search. You can click the plus button. Then you can rearrange them up and down. Just remember, be really careful, because if you click remove this effect, it will basically remove it. So if I do, like, let me do create new preset again to show you this. So test. Now if I come back here, let me just see. Okay, it has actually created the test. What I wanted to check was if it automatically created that file when you created the new preset. So it does create the new configuration file when you add it in, and then what you can do is say, I want to remove the multiband. Let me see if I can find one that's got something that's easily seeable. So okay, so we've got the stereo tools here. You can see on the output it's got 0.25 set for stereo bass. Suppose late at night, and I'm, easy to do, I accidentally click this and delete the stereo tools. Oh god, maybe it's one with a lot more settings in. Come back in, go stereo tools, right, come back here and go to the output. You see that it's still got the same settings saved. So even if you accidentally delete it, as long as you haven't hit that reset button, you can re-add it in and it will still retain those settings. So it's just something to remember. And the other thing is, as you go along, remember, just save the settings occasionally, just as if it was a text document you were writing, so that you don't save any changes. So hopefully that's going through everything pretty much possible I could think of after playing around with this for a day. But I've been really impressed with it. It's really easy to use. Again, it's a flatpak application, so it's really easy to set up on any Linux distribution. And again, finally, what I'll do is I'll close this off now. And what I'll just do is come across to the documentation here. So again, if you've got PipeWire set up, you can skip the PipeWire section. If not, and you're on Ubuntu 22.04, this is what you want to do. If you're on another distribution, you need to refer to the documentation about setting up PipeWire on that distro. But this is how you do it on Ubuntu 22.04, and this is how you check after you've got everything configured. You do a reboot, you check PACTL info. It should say like Pulse Audio on PipeWire. Once you've done that, next step is getting flatpak installed. So you just install flatpak, add the remote, and then add the remote for EasyEffects. Remember, you can see the way I'm doing this, setting up flatpak, is I'm using the -- user flag when I'm installing flatpak, so that it creates the .var directory in my home. And that basically means that it's a lot easier to get access to the configuration file. So that's why I'm using the -- user flag here, and that installed stuff in .var app. So any links or anything I'll will be referring to this location as opposed to the sort of install at the root of the system. So if you've got flatpak installed at the root of the system, the path to the configuration files may be slightly different, and you'll need to have a look up on that. So that's basically all you need to do. You got PipeWire and flatpak installed. All you just need to do is install EasyEffects. It's going to prompt you to install, all the runtime libraries and everything it needs. Once you've done that, you just come across and you just do EasyEffects. It's going to open up, and remember in the settings, the preferences here, you can set this to launch at system startup, but I haven't tried that using flatpak. And also by default, it's going to shut down when you close the window, and I haven't actually tried disabling that because I couldn't. What I wasn't sure is if it doesn't shut down when the window closes, how do you then actually turn it off? So that wasn't obvious. So have a play around with those, and if you find out what they do, just leave a comment. So I'll put links to all this under the video. Hopefully that's gone in depth enough about all the different options and everything in EasyEffects, because there are some videos I did come across, but they tended to be quite short and didn't actually explain the interface and some of the ins and outs of stuff and where the configuration files are actually stored. So hopefully this will actually allow you to create presets, for different situations, for different devices, and be able to then copy those configuration files to another machine and just easily import them. So remember, the only thing is just make sure that you actually back up the configuration files, because it's really easy just to, I've got the headphones listed here. So if I come back across into the config EasyEffects output, so as you can see here, I've got the 3 presets listed, but it is really easy just to go, you might just be clicking and then accidentally have a hand spasm and click test, and it's not only is it deleting it from here, it's also, as you can see, deleted the configuration file. So be really careful about that. Make sure that you back up these configuration files outside of this directory, so that if you do something stupid and accidentally delete the preset that you spent days working on and getting just right, that you actually got a backup. So that's just one thing I would mention. That is, it is easy to delete the presets, but if you actually accidentally delete a filter from the chain, you can just add that effect back in and it will retain the settings. So just remember, as you're going along changing stuff, to frequently save stuff as you go, and also once you've actually saved stuff, copy that configuration file out of the flatpak directory onto your desktop or something, so that what you want to do is you make all your changes, you save it, but then you also copy that configuration file out of the directory just in case you click the trash can and delete stuff. So that's just a couple of things to watch out for using this. And again, you've got loads of different effects you can apply. Makes it easy to import and export profiles. You can set up automatic loading of profiles for particular audio devices. You can toggle this on and off. You can enable it per application. You can exclude applications. So I'd say this is a really, really good addition to your Linux system, especially if you're using something that hasn't got a built-in equalizer, a video player maybe like MPV or Kodi or something that doesn't have a built-in equalizer. So if you're using something like Kodi and you've got it hooked up to your TV, you can use EasyEffects to apply audio effects to Kodi so that it sounds better on your TV. So I'll put links to all this under the video and hope that helps out.